Okay, we're live, guys. We're live.
Okay.
Our guest today is none other than Marcia Wolak, a legend in both realms of athleticism and strategic prowess. From smashing aces on the tennis court to outwitting opponents at the poker table, her story is one of resilience, adaptability, and unparalleled skill. You see, I put some work in this intro, Marcia.
Wow. That's amazing, Carl.
It's not done yet. It's not done. After hanging up a racket, well, kind of, Marcia found a new passion in the unpredictable world of poker. With a keen eye for strategy and nerves of steel, that's something you're known for, zero fear at the table. She rose through the ranks, ultimately seizing the coveted prize of a poker bracelet, a testament to her unwavering dedication and talent. So without further ado, let's welcome the woman who proves that whether on the court or at the table, true champions are defined by their ability to adapt and thrive. Join me in welcoming Marcia Wolak to the pod. What's up, Marcia? How you doing?
Wow, what do I do after that intro? Honestly, I've never had that incredible of an intro. That's so sweet. We will send that to me, right?
I'll copy and paste it. Yeah, I'll copy and paste it.
Thank you, Carl. And real quick, I'm going to say it till the cows come home. I just think it's so incredible that you do these podcasts and bring out the talent and the people in Tampa and the Tampa Bay area, because I think it's, we've been overshadowed because we have some amazing rooms in Florida, but we have a lot of incredible players and people and stories, and it's really cool that you've done this. So thank you from all of us poker people.
Thank you very much, Marcia. Very, very nice of you. And we have Shane, the human solver. Shane, what's up, buddy?
Yeah, if I could follow with Marcia's idea. Yeah, thanks for doing these. I'm happy to be here every time. And anytime I go to these casinos and talk with just people who listen to this podcast, the 1,000 viewers are basically all here in Tampa. So when you guys come out and like say hi to me or like, hey, I watched that episode with Carl and you introduce yourself, it's awesome. So thanks for watching these. And if you keep enjoying them, definitely like them on Facebook or on YouTube. Help Carl reach more audience and leave some comments down in the chat and say what you think about Marcia or what you think about Carl or me.
Only nice things though. I don't know.
Yeah, just only nice stuff. Things. Yeah, the bad things we just delete. Thank you, Shane, for saying that. Yeah, guys, like, comment, and please subscribe. It helps the channel grow. All right, Marcia, let's dive in. We have a ton of questions for Marcia today. Ton of questions. We have a really good show. Let's start a little bit of a background. How did young Marcia was introduced to poker? How did you find the poker back in the day?
Well, quite unexpectedly, nobody predicted the real estate collapse of back in 2006, 2007. And I had been a very active, big real estate agent and broker and selling over 100 million, and just that's what my world was. And when the floor fell out of the real estate market, I found myself with lots of extra time, and so maybe sitting in my kitchen, I don't even know what I was wearing, I just jumped on and a free PokerStars, and I had played like little different games growing up as a kid, just different games, not No Limit, Texas Hold'em, but high-low,
rummy,
canasta, and spades, and I always liked cards. And my dad played in the military. He was in the Navy, played on ships. I used to hear about he used to win money playing that, and I'm thinking, did I get it from my dad? But so lo and behold, this extra time, I just went on and free because I didn't know what I was doing. And you know what free is. When you start doing well free, you start thinking you're kind of good, but little do you know that you suck. But at the time, I started winning these little single tables, and then I remember I jumped in a dollar tournament, and there was like 10,000 players. And then I actually won it, and I won $775.
Damn!
I thought to myself, and I was doing all kinds of. It was like 8 hours. It went so fast, turbo. But I was doing all kinds of stuff. I wasn't even paying attention. Then I got down to like final table, I'm like, I'm still in this thing. And so after that, you know, I started taking it more seriously. And then in 2009, I went to the WSOP Ladies Academy because I still didn't know what I was doing in Las Vegas. And Annie Duke taught it. Love her or hate her, she to this day is like the best teacher, and with such clarity and humor, which I think is a good combination to use when you're trying to teach something. And it was a 2-day course, and it was kind of amazing that 2 years later I won the bracelet in the ladies event. And I do credit her. You know, obviously everything's changed since then, but her passion and her just how she cared about the students. And I said to myself, I would certainly love to give back someday. If I do well in this, I would like to do the same thing. So that's kind of where I've evolved, being a coach, being a player. But that's kind of how I transgressed in this game out of sheer real estate market collapse. And it just turned into something positive, had extra time, and the next thing I know. But I will say I'm a big proponent of ladies events, because I am living proof that ladies events are platforms and how the door opens for a lot of us women. And this might make you laugh, but you know, I had a gynecologist once tell me, Marcia, you have the most testosterone of any woman I've ever known. And he'd been in the business already like 20 years. And, you know, I'm very brave and I'm very bold, but I was terrified to go into a live poker room for over a year. I played online. I was intimidated, and here I am having the most testosterone, and I'm outgoing, and but you know.
Funny you mentioned this. Do you know what your testosterone level is? Because I think
I have no idea. It's probably not that now. This is when I was younger.
You know, there's a direct correlation between how athletic you are and your athletic prowess and testosterone levels. That's like a known thing.
You know, I believe that.
And I can see that in you because you're a good athlete. Let's talk a little bit about your background in tennis too. Okay. When did that start, and how did that translate to poker?
Well, I did not start tennis till I was 14, which is very late for a pro. But the second, and you know how you get instincts about some things, like people or things that you start. And I hit a ball with my next door neighbor, who took me out on the public courts and metal nets, and I dropped the racket and I ran to the net and I said, Billy, I'm going to play Wimbledon someday. I see it. I mean, I really did that. First of all, I ran to the net. And sure enough, a few years later, 9 years later, I was playing Wimbledon from 14. And then I played it at 23 years old. But that was late to start. But, you know, when you have passion and love for something, you kind of get a tunnel vision, and then it's what you do. You can you can ignite something to get you excited, but then it's what you do. Like, how do you study? What is your plan? Do you make goals? What's your path? So I made sure to practice a lot, but I never had the funds to get proper training or coaching at that time. And then right before I got on the tour, I had, you know, it's incredible. Like I had a sponsor offer, Denver Oil Company out of Denver. They sponsored me my first year, and then my ranking was going up, and I started at like 250, and then got under 200, and then another company or an individual family in San Diego, like, hey, Marcia, do you want to sponsor? And I'm like, this is amazing, because top 10 players weren't even being sponsored back then. And I'm like, I have one, and they said, we'd like to sponsor you for 7 years. We have a 7-year offer. I'm like, so, Jeez. You know, what's really strange is that I think that things happen to people. It's like when you just try your best and you're nice to people, and things just kind of happen. And kind of that opened up for me. And then unfortunately, though, I played racquetball along with tennis. I love them both. And 4 years into my 7-year sponsorship, I crushed my right rotator playing racquetball. So that ended that. But it taught me a lot about life and, you know, discipline, about practicing, and, you know, how it relates to poker. I think that you should study a lot more than you play. Like, I know I'm jumping ahead, but you had asked me, hey, what do you think is a good thing for amateurs, whatever. I know I'm jumping ahead, sorry.
No,
But
no, go ahead. Go ahead. We can dive deep in that question later. And my other question was, how competitive were you? And growing up, were you like the tomboy, always playing like games outside, or you weren't just
absolutely.
playing with dolls?
Absolutely. I would challenge anybody to a race. I would challenge anybody. Hey, I always love Yahtzee. My husband and I play Yahtzee all the time. And I am very competitive, but in a really fun, competitive way,
Of
and
course.
I love like golf. I play semi-pro golf. I was the first woman ever on the Michelob Amateur Golf Tour, first woman to win one of their tournaments, first woman to go to nationals. I mean, it's not like I want to be the first woman, but when I see no other women there, I ran to the tournament director and said, "Why aren't there women?" I watched the whole tournament, hole by hole, and not one woman. I kept waiting for a woman, and I'm like, "Why aren't there any women?" And they said, "Well,
Why do
yeah,
you think there aren't any women in golf?
well." Well, in golf back then, they said, well, they have to, they hit a lot from the blue or the white tees. I said, well, I'll be able to do that. Just give me next year, I'll be on it. And he's like thinking, this crazy woman. At the time I just started, my handicap was like 100. So what was nice is I worked hard, took lessons. I swear that anybody can really excel at something if they just do the work.
Of course.
And that's what's great about poker. There's so much information, as long as you get the right information and correct and try things. But, you can get there, and like in sports too. I mean, you have good coaches, or you have good information and good practice, good routines and practice.
Talking about coaching, okay, now we have an image. So you had a competitive background. You messed with everything, basically golf, racquetball, tennis. You had that drive, and you kind of excelled in all the disciplines you mess with. Are you like that? Like once you get into something, you're all in, right? You
Yeah,
don't.
but
That's like you're not 20% type of person.
no,
You
I'm
gotta
an
get into
all,
something.
yeah, I'm an all or nothing, all or nothing,
I love it.
It is. And what's interesting is I don't start out wanting to be number one. I start out wanting to do the best that I can. And that's where I think the difference is I'm not comparing myself to other people. I'm comparing myself to myself. I want to be the best that I can be. So, I try different ways to do that in sports and in poker, and but I'm always competing against myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Which at the end, that's exactly what it is. It's you against you in any sport you play, in anything in life, really.
I
It's
think
always you. It's that person in the mirror.
there's
Yeah.
like different types when it comes to like competition. Like when you go to play tennis, and there's some people who might just go to the court and try and like have fun, and then there's some people who like maybe you'd hit it to them at a harsh angle or something, and they would just be like curious. They'd be like, how do I return that? That was like hard. And then like
Yeah.
once you show them, they get like excited. They're like,
Yeah.
wow, I can get better if I like learn how
Yeah.
to return that. And it sounds like you kind of have that quality, and that quality gets rewarded in poker.
That's a
Exactly.
great point.
Yeah, I guess I have a curiosity. I just love, I wish that I could split myself up into a bunch of people, because there's all kinds of fields that I would have liked to have done. I would have liked to have been a doctor. I think I would have loved to have helped people. I mean, so I get so excited about a lot of things, but I wish I had more of me and more time to do more things.
Clone. You need 2 clones of Marsha. Marsha 1, 2, and 3. Marsha, let's talk a little bit. We talk coaching. Let's start about your first endeavors in poker, trying to help or give back. Is your coaching? How did that come about? EpicPokerTraining.com. I've heard about it. I've done some research now, but I've heard that you had coaching back in the day with Natasha Barber and a couple
Yes.
other people, Ronnie Barda and Jessica Dolly.
Yeah.
Tell us, how did that product come about, and is it still running today?
Yeah. Well, what's really cool is, no man is an island, and I believe in synergy. Like, you guys do the podcast together. I mean, it's so much better when you have other people with the similar passions joining up and doing things together. So right away, I wanted to give back, help people, women and men, but especially being a woman, and I know how intimidating it can be. I really wanted to give platforms for women to feel comfortable to come in. You know, I have like ladies, you know, learn and play days, things like that. But so I immediately said, you know what, it'd be really cool because I don't see it. I don't see a company with just women pros. So that's what I wanted to do. I said, I'm going to go out. And Natasha is a great friend of mine. I call her my poker daughter, and her kids are my poker grandchildren. They're adorable. And then, so she was instantly on board. And then Jessica Dolly, I remember playing next to her, and she was so ferocious and such a great competitor, but such an awesome person and a background in the military, which I really, you can be the best poker player in the world, but if you aren't a good person, I'm not impressed. You know, I really, so Jessica, and then Donna Blevins, you know, I think she's 6'4" or 7" or something, and her husband is like 5'3". They're the perfect match, but for mental mind coaching, you know, because I know that's important. And I've actually added that into my, this year, you know, my coaching as well. But so I said, you know what? Let's all get together and let's do this. So we gave the first, we gave it a first day academy at Seminole Hard Rock in Hollywood. We've done them in other places, but then there's a funny story about Natasha. Natasha was going to be my roommate. She'll love this when she hears this, if she hears this, but she already knows because we
Shout
talk
out to
about
Natasha.
it. Natasha Mercier. She used to be Barbour, but so I've always loved her. I went to her college graduation, birthday parties. I mean, she's from Tampa, and just a great spirit and an amazing player. But was really funny. So she was going to move to Pompano and be my roommate. And we had the first high game, cash game, ladies. And I don't know if you saw that, but this was, oh my gosh, 2013, back in Hollywood. And Natasha and I and Jessica were all, you know, picked to be in the first high stakes cash game. Vanessa Selps, a good friend of mine, also was in there. And sure enough, so I'm waiting for her to come to her first day as my roommate, Natasha. And, you know, lo and behold, you know, things happen. It doesn't, we all get on the show. And, you know, next thing I know, she calls me the next day and she's like, I said, Natasha, I've been so worried about you. And she says, oh, you know, so all I tell her is I lost my roommate to, I tell Jason this too, I lost my roommate to Jason Mercier, you know, so she never did move it. Yeah, that's what I've told him. You stole my roommate. So, but so then obviously you've seen what happened, like, you know, her final table, she got third and he proposed in World Series. So everybody kind of went off their own way, you know, and she's now has 3 children. Jessica has the baby also. And so we're not doing live seminars. We're really not doing academies, and I'm doing mostly, you know, private coaching. I'm glad to see Natasha back on the tables, which is great because she's taken a lot of time off. Jessica also has taken time off. So lo and behold, it's pretty much me right now, but I certainly would love in the future to get us all back together. If we can, we all will be, you know, she's parents. I'm now a grandparent with 2, but you know how life changes, just like poker. It's a chameleon. Life is a chameleon. It changes every day.
Well said. By the way, Natasha, I had a home game, small home game, like a couple of buddies. Shout out to Majdi, Abe, and Sean Tanzi. Those guys, we used to get together. And Natasha was dating a Lebanese guy at the time, and you know she's Lebanese. Her background is Lebanese. So she came to my home game. That was the first time I met Natasha. Who knew that she's gonna be that big in poker and marry Jason? Yeah, but she came to that home game that one time. Her boyfriend introduced me to her, and that was my first interaction with Natasha. Natasha has good energy. Like she walks in the room, everybody loves Natasha. She says hi to everybody. It's the Lebanese in her. They're very social, very likable. Anyway,
awesome. Yeah.
So the coaching still going on? Is this site still active? Like people can
join? Yes, it is. Absolutely. Okay. I give several lessons. You know, I gave one before this podcast. I'm giving one later tonight. I mean, I'm doing a a seminar, and I'm going to post it on Facebook. It's on Satellites. It's Wednesday, May 15th at 7 o'clock. I'm adding in the milestone adjustment on there. So it's from 7 to 9, but I would love it if you guys come, be my guests on the show or on the webinar. I love Satellites. I just find them such a great springboard into big tournaments. So
you're the Stati queen for sure. Every time you enter a Stati, you bink a ticket. So it's an interesting topic of all topics to pick the topic of satellites in the webinar. But before that, let's talk coaching. What changed? First, when was the site founded? What year?
I have been
12, 13?
About 2013, this Epic Poker training. And so it's been about 10 years.
Okay.
And really have met like a tremendous amount of people. But as you know, Carl, the poker has changed so much through the years. What I used to teach when I started doesn't even apply anymore.
That was my next question.
It's all, yeah.
That was my next question. How did the content of that coaching site stay relevant after? Because I'm gonna say poker changed in 2015 when the solvers were introduced, and then 17, 18 when they got better and the game got broken down. That's why I say whenever somebody comes up to me and they be like, "Oh, I'm reading a book about poker." First thing I say, what year was it written in?
Exactly.
Because if it's written in like 2008, 2009, it doesn't. Some of the stuff apply, like the basic stuff about pot odds and all that stuff apply today.
Right.
But a lot of it won't be relevant in today's day and age of poker. So how did your site stay relevant throughout the years?
Exactly. What I've done is I've made over the years, especially in the last 12 months, I think poker has changed the most in the last year. I think very different. So what I've done is I've made like packages of like 5 sessions because it's changed so fast that so I work on, okay, what's relevant now? And I'll put together, okay, this is today's hand ranges. Okay, this is today's aggression. This is today's 3-betting. This is today's, in a package of 5. And then I'll do another package of 5 of the, so it's like, the inchworm, like I feel like an inchworm where I keep.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, you got to keep moving up to what's current. And, here's a good analogy. I tell my students, it's like, have you ever been on a treadmill?
Of course.
Okay. So if you start the treadmill on, say 3, and you walk, okay, you can kind of go slow and you can start getting a little, feel pretty good. So you start cranking it up and you get up to about 10. Now you're starting to run, right? So now this is just trying to keep up, right? You want to keep up with the treadmill, which is like poker learning. So what happens if you turn the treadmill off? If you're running, what happens? What if the treadmill goes off?
You just crash into the wall.
You crash into the wall, you go off. That's what poker players, that's what's happening right now is I think there's been such an escalation of knowledge and play and acceleration of play in the last year that I think a lot of people are falling off the poker treadmill, hitting the wall because they're trying to do things like that don't work anymore. So like the things that didn't like work just like a year or 2 ago aren't working now.
Just to be specific for the listeners, in layman's terms, give us 3 things that used to apply before 2015 that doesn't work anymore.
Oh my gosh. C-betting.
Well, a good one.
C-betting. I used to be able to C-bet 100% of the time and probably win the pot the majority of the time. 90%. And if I didn't win it there, I'd win it on the next street, a lot of the time. C-betting, forget it.
Yeah.
It used to be where I used to look forward to getting into multi-way pots in position. Now, forget about multi-way pots. Everybody's so good. Everybody is playing too good. So multi-way pots are so much more difficult to win. So now I think it's better that you need to 3-bet more, isolate more to not have multi-way pots if you're going to play in a pot. So those
Agreed.
are three things right there. You need to 3-bet more, forget about c-betting like like the standard c-bet or whatever. Now there's delay c-betting, and there's it's so different
That's
that
a very good point that you brought up c betting, because before like 2007, 2008, there was no such thing as check flop. It was c bet 100. It was raise
What?
pre-flop, c bet 100. That's how they played back then. Then the
Yeah.
solvers came and they said there are certain boards that you got to check 100%.
Yeah.
So now the demographic change. You see people checking more on flops, and doesn't mean when they check that they're weak. That's the whole thing about balance. Balance was not a thing back in those days.
Right.
Another thing you talked about, multi-way pots. Multi-way pots are always, I call them the cancer of poker, especially at low limits. When the pot goes like 6-7 ways, like good
Yeah.
luck winning. You can't win. You got to make a hand. When it's 5-6 ways, somebody's gonna have something. You can't bluff your way out of the hand. You have to
No.
make it. You have to play basically face up.
Yeah.
Online,
I have-
we got a lot of people's like charts, and these are just like dorks. These are like the online players. But you could see someone whose like graph looks really impressive, and they're winning. It's just like a vertical line up until like 2020. And I think it's like same thing even in the online world with the nerds only nowadays. Basically, ever since like GTO Wiz came out and all the solves were really easy to get, you don't have to actually like run it yourself. You don't have to plug it in yourself. You just pay them $80 a month and they'll give it to you. Basically, since 2020, all those winners, their graphs got like way worse. So I agree with you completely.
Thank you,
like,
Shane. That makes sense.
The past year has gotten, the past 2 years have gotten quite rough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shane is a wizard, and he actually runs sims in multi-way pots. And the GTO Wizard, the solvers don't run multi-way. It's only heads up. So when people come up to me and they'd be like, "Oh, we played a hand 4 ways, and this guy raised, and this guy shoved all in, and this guy called. What does the solver say?" I said, "The solver doesn't solve multi-way." But Shane did some work off the tables for multi-way pots, and it's basically did it like Doug Polk did it back in the day, using Equilab, using not using solvers.
It's
like
HRC.
basically,
it's like a really advanced like manual solver. You have to like plug in every hand like one by one, and then it can change like a reaction. So like, say you have like your under the gun range where you open King Jack offsuit or whatever. But when you're like in a live environment, you have all these players who just really want to play hands. So they might call a hand they're not supposed to. Like they might just call with like 5-8 suited just because they want to. So you have to like go in and manually add that like, hey, this guy's gonna call when he has 5-8. The solver's not gonna do that. So the solver's gonna give you like a dumb answer because they're calling with 5-8 suited. So you have to like,
right.
And then once he calls with 5-8 suited, the guy to his left might call with Jack 5 suited. Because now the pot's bigger and he could win more.
Yeah.
So you have to like individually, like once one guy comes in, the next guy's going to come in even wider, and then like like the big blind's never going to fold because he's going to say, "Oh, never. I'm getting 20-1." Yes, you go in, you add all this, and then they take a long time. Once you hit like run the solve, a good computer, it might take like 10 hours to give you like one hand, like one answer.
So it solves multi-way, but you have to enter the ranges to each player.
Yeah.
Based on the action.
Oh my gosh.
So there's a lot of guessing game, but you can kind of nail it down because the more the hand progresses, you can narrow down the ranges of each player and depends on their action too. And some of it's like sometimes in real time, you see players showing up with hands that they should have never played. I mean, it happens all the time. I had a guy called me a couple days ago with 8-9 of clubs on an ace king 10, 2 spades. And he ended up winning the hand. It was a derby. And I texted Clyde. Clyde was at the other end of the table. I'm like, what is this guy doing calling me with 8-9 of clubs on an ace king 10 board, 1 club? And he knows I'm like, I'm not going to slow down on the turn, especially on that board. I'm going bet. So it's not like he's going to see a free turn, maybe to pick up some equity. But 8-9 of clubs on an ace king 10 is a snap fold.
Right.
And we weren't deep. We had like 40 bigs. He had about like 38 bigs. So it's like a boss. He just snap calls. I bet small flop, but still 8-9 of clubs is a fold there. Anyway,
if there's any like ICM implication, like you're a little bit deep, I'm already folding like a pair of 10s on like ace king 10.
There was no ICM. It's mid tournament, like 50% of the field left. Some
ICM, 3 to a straight. It's pretty light.
I want to go back to the strategy stuff, but we have a lot of questions. Let's talk about your studying, Marcia. When you
Okay.
started playing the game, actually before that, let's pull up your hand and mob and put it under the microscope. That's
Because I have a goal for this summer with the Hendon Mob, but go ahead.
What's the goal?
I want to be like Carl. He went over $1 million. I want to go over $1 million this summer. I'm at 890, and I want to go over $1 million this summer for myself and my investors. So
your hand and mob is impressive for sure. Best live
Thank
cash
you.
192K, total earnings 890K, and these are the stats.
Your best live cash is like 4 times me and Carl's.
Oh yeah,
it's nice. Yeah.
Okay. First year was 2010 recorded. 2011, huge year, 223K. Let's see what happened in 2011.
Well, you want to hear something funny? I turned pro. My husband at the time, who's no longer my husband, because he didn't want me to even play poker like this. And I said, you don't understand. I compared my part-time winning poker earnings last year to my full-time real estate, like, the market had crashed, and then I went out and got a mortgage broker's license because there was no real estate business. And my poker part-time was like 10 times more than my full-time. And I said, look, I'm going to jump off a proverbial cliff. I would like you to support me mentally, not financially. I've always supported myself with my poker. And I'm like, I'm going to do this because if I spent the time studying, I think I could do a lot better. So no, he didn't really like that. He said, you're crazy to do that. So I turned, even no matter what he said, January 1st of that year. And actually they didn't record a lot of the things. Like I actually earned over 250,000 in my first year as a pro. But again, remember that it was a lot different back then than it is now. But I studied as much as the information that was out there. I kind of bought every book, every video. I tried everything and found things that work for me, kind of like a sieve. It goes through and eventually what works for you. But poker's gotten a lot harder now, so you got to work harder, study harder. But I had a tremendous first year, so I never went, like so many people go broke and live in their cars. So I really had a great start. And that's when I wanted to help others because it's so much fun, isn't it? It's the greatest game. It's a great mind exercise, and it's just, you meet a lot of people, it's social, and I mean, I'm competitive, and it's just like a perfect match. I just love it. And I love to travel. I'm always got my bag half packed. Ask my husband who's listening to this. I always I can't wait to go. I love hotels. I would be a terrible, I don't do camping and stuff. I just love to go to hotels. And so, yeah, poker's just been great. So I'm glad I chose poker over my husband, and now he's called my ex-husband because of that, because you have to support your partner, your spouse,
of course.
You have to be supportive.
You cannot succeed in poker or anything else if you don't have a supportive partner. You have no chance.
1,000%. You have no chance. Thank you, Carl.
The guys that lie to their wives if they're at the casino and stuff, that won't work. You have to have 100% support from your partner, or you have no chance. And I'm lucky to have that partner. Shout out to Tasha. Anyway, this is a dive into let's look at your hand them up, and I have 2 other questions. We're going to talk bankroll because you said you're always supported yourself. We're going to talk about bankroll management, and we're going to talk about studying and what type of studying you've done back in those days. But let's look at the numbers. So first recorded score. This is interesting. I was looking at this yesterday, and it says Florida Million Poker Tournament, St. Petersburg. Was that at Derby?
Yes, it was at Derby. They used to hold the Florida Millions, and it was the best tournament of the year.
What the hell happened? What happened? Look at first place, 137K. And now,
fantastic. It was a great tournament. So much fun. They brought everybody in, and I really don't know. I don't know. Derby kind of fell off the big poker tournament map for some reason.
I'm going to try to make it happen. Shout out to Brian at Derby. I always said he has bosses that don't listen to him, and I don't know if I can say this on air, but there was a big stop that was going to happen at Derby, and they didn't go for it. And I think it's a big mistake. A big stop with a big name behind it.
Moneymaker.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
And they didn't do it?
Yes.
You have to like
Oh.
you have to imagine that you could show them like maybe
What?
a WPT from Hollywood from 2011 and show them like the growth to now.
Yeah.
Compare those two numbers.
Yeah.
And then just show them their old numbers from 2011 and then show them their
Exactly.
tournaments now and be like, why are you guys downgrading when everybody's upgrading?
Correct. Look at the
Oh.
first place, 137K. So imagine the pool must have been like 300 or 400K.
It was
maybe
awesome.
more.
It was
Anyway,
really
so this is your first recorded score. Look at the top 10. We got Joe Parrish. Shout out to Joe. David
yeah, he's
Bennett.
awesome.
So this is your first score. And then not long after this was in April of 2010. April 2011, a year after, you score first for 22K. This is when things start turning around. Pompano Beach, 550 buy-in. Let's see the names. Lily Coletto, 10th. Shout out to Lily. So you shipped this event. And then this is the peak. 192K. Tell us about this. This is the bracelet.
Well, I was not expecting that, by the way. And I look back at the player I was then, and I'm the player I am now. It's really night and day. But I do remember that I knew that I needed to be aggressive, and I was aggressive from the first hand until the last. And but there I had my patience. You know, you have to be patient in tournaments too. Don't think I'm just always. But I was 3-betting when really people weren't 3-betting, and I was, I check raising. I was doing things that they really weren't doing then, but as much. But I just remember being patient when I had to. But I'll tell you what, I went completely card dead. Day 3, and my name was never mentioned because I'm not the player that chips up and is leading the field at the end of the day. I actually did it just last week in Hollywood. It doesn't happen like where I was like chip leader at the first break or something. I don't know how that happened. That's a fluke. But on all the tournaments that I play, I just more of a steady growth. And that one, I always had average chips, blah, blah, blah. And my name was never mentioned until day 3. I started one of the shorter stacks. There was 14 of us left. I didn't play one hand. All I wanted to get, if I could just get ace or a king, because I was super short. So I blinded down, and that's where I learned about folding has value, and we'll talk about that later. But I think folding is underestimated, undervalued. I think in tournaments, especially deeper, because have you ever busted when you're not in a hand?
No.
Think about it. I mean, and ICM and other people. So, but I would have played had I had an ace or a king. But and then I get to final table and I have 3 big blinds, and yeah, and then lucky do some double, and then I knock out the first man and the last man that ever made final table of the ladies event. To this day, it's Debbie Farmer's favorite hand, pocket tens, but my pocket tens beat his ace queen in a race. And I felt I won the tournament then. There was so many people watching that. And then most of them left. They didn't care who won it. They just wanted to see if the guy was going to win it. And then to go on and win was just like icing on the cake. I felt I won it twice, really, because but it was a dream. But Carl and you guys, you look back at yourself how long have you guys playing? Because if you look back at the person 10 years ago or whatever, it's not even the same player.
I started 07, but I was playing cash. I didn't transfer to tournaments till 2016. This is when I took it seriously.
You didn't play tournaments till 2016?
Yeah, I used to make fun of tournament players. I jumped in a tournament once. I'm like, this is boring as fuck. I have 2 questions, Marsha. 2 questions. First of all, was ICM a thing back then? Did people talk about ICM, or you just knew you needed to tighten up and not do less towards the end?
What's funny? No, and there was no GTO anything. That wasn't even a word.
It wasn't.
No ICM. We didn't talk. And I had bought all the books. At that point, but I still didn't know what I was doing, really. I know basics, but I look back and, I didn't understand a lot of why things happen, but I did understand being aggressive worked. So at least I had that, like we joke about my testosterone level, maybe that helped. But I always had that, as my backup. Okay, Marsha, I think that if I'm aggressive in this hand and show aggressive on multiple streets, and that's another thing, people, they seem to be very passive after like one attempt at the flop, and then that's it. So back then, it's very, very different than what's going on now. But
hold the thought about testosterone, because it's going to come up later. We're going to talk about women in poker, why not more women play poker, and we're going to talk about the factor of testosterone. And the reason why
I think that's the reason.
The reason why I got you on is I see your game. You have no fear. You're never timid at the table. If you think somebody's getting out of line against you, you're going to shove it in their face. Yeah, you're not scared at the table. We're going to talk about two factors. We're going to talk about the aggression factor, and we're going to talk about how do you deal. This actually, Tasha brought it up earlier. I told her to come ask her herself. How do you deal with men? Not the nice people that we play at Hard Rock, but you have some assholes sometimes at the table make comments after they lose a hand. That there's that whole dynamic man woman. If a woman beats me, how some men think like they have so much ego that if a woman beats them, they're gonna go after you. So I want to see if that dynamic is ever a thing when you're playing. Is that in the back of your mind? Well, because I have a student that comes to the coaching sessions. And every time she takes an action, she'll be like, oh, but they always coming after me. Oh, but they always call me down because I'm a girl, So I'm like, shout out to Shannon, by the way. Her name is Shannon. She always mentions the fact that I'm a girl, they're doing this. I'm a girl. So I said, Shannon, you got to take that out of the equation. Sometimes they're just playing their hand. And every once in a while, maybe 5% of the time, they are coming after you because you're a woman and they think you're passive. If you're in the blind, they're attacking your blinds, maybe more often. But if you think that way, you're going to make mistakes because you always think that men are coming after you. So I want to see how much that plays into your game.
You know what you think in your head is what's reality.
Ooh, that's a good one.
No, it's true. I do like coaching. I do life coaching with my poker lessons now. I started this year. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
If you think, because I actually disagree with I'm sorry, Shannon, but when I go to a poker tournament, I had one issue one time, and it was with a dealer, and it was in Atlantic City at Borgata. The dealer was misogynistic to me. It seems like when I play, and I don't know if it's because if people know me or they don't know, whatever, but I think that women have an automatic edge. I'll say it. I think that when women enter a pot, I think that unless that people know them or know me, that I'm capable of opening differently, but I think they're given more credit for a hand. So I actually think women have advantages that they can bluff or they can do things in spots, over men. I've been actually, like, I've heard in Vegas at a seminar, who's the guy? Phil Gordon said it. Man, if I was a woman, I'd win like every tournament. So there is credit that women automatically have. So I want Shannon, if you're listening, can you please change your mental thinking? Because when I sit down at a table, I'm not experiencing this. I think that I kind of want them to kind of fear me. I want them to know that I'm fearless. I am fearless, but I want them, I think they're kind of sometimes, respect my game or respect my bets, so I'm not getting that feeling that guys are disrespecting me or whatever she's thinking. I've heard that said.
She didn't talk about disrespect. She talked more about going after her because she's a woman. They think she's passive and they can like steal her blinds or.
Well, if she lets them, they will. In fact, and that goes for men and women. If I got a guy that I'm raising, he's folding every time, I'm going to raise 100%. You know what? I'm going to raise more. So I think that it works both ways, men and women. But yeah, if a guy thinks, okay, I can, run over her because she's the one to raise, well, then she needs to, 3-bet him. You can,
fight back.
you can fight back. I mean, so if somebody's running over you, it could be a man or a woman, because if you're letting them, you know what I mean? So just fight back, you know, learn different strategies, you know, be more aggressive. Because what's the worst thing that aggressive player, what's the worst thing they would see it? What scares them the most when they get at a table, you know, an aggressive player?
When people don't let them run them over.
A more aggressive player. They don't want to see it. You know, they don't want to see another aggressive player. They stay.
Okay, so since we brought this up, this is a good point you brought up about actually exploiting players because they think they perceive you or put you in one box, and to combat that. So you're saying they're giving like too much credit to your bets, so you can get away with bluffs more because they think every time you bet you have it. So to exploit that, you can mix in some bluffs, and they're not going to give you credit for a bluff because they think you're a woman, you don't bluff that much.
Right.
You're using it as a tool, as a weapon, instead of actually hindering your game. Another person if
I could chime in, I believe what you're saying so much. One of my online accounts I play from, the username is Army Wife, and my picture is like a pink heart with camo. And people think I'm a girl when I play online, but I did it specifically because I agree with you. I think people are going to assume I'm a girl and I'm not bluffing enough.
Yeah.
And I use it because what you're saying is true. They're going to overfold to me because they think I'm a girl.
Yeah. And sometimes if there is somebody that a guy that does tend to bluff a lot, he'll bluff not just me but others. I actually will just let him bluff me, and then I win a lot of chips on guys or people trying to bluff me. I let them bluff me. So if you have somebody like that, you know, just trap them, you know?
Yeah.
Since we're on this subject, another question that comes up, and I want to hear somebody else's opinion too, because you obviously don't have the issue of man, woman at the table. And that's why you're successful in poker, because you don't have that in the back of your mind. You're there to play the game. Whether a man, a woman, a bear is sitting at the table, you're just playing your game. Another person that had the same outlook on the game is Hindi. Shout out to Hindi.
I love him.
When I mentioned that you know, women are perceived a certain way at the table or like intimidated to play, she's like, what women think like that? She's tough too. Hindi is tough.
I love Hindi. Yeah.
Another thing is, why do you think more women play poker? Why is it male dominated, do you think? What's
really cool, like I know you're going to talk about it, and a student of mine is Tammy Abraham, who won the ladies event. That was historic. That was the most women they ever played, 1,295. There are more women getting in the game all the time. So the time.
Was this a recent tournament? The 1,295.
The ladies event this last summer in the World Series.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So there are more women. So we used to say, why aren't there more women? Now there are more women coming in. That was a historic. It's the most since 1977 was the first ladies event.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's great.
I heard,
almost 50 years, blew it out of the water. I had the highest for a while. Mine was like 1,055, but last year blew it away. So what's nice is that's why I encourage poker rooms to have ladies events. Because again, going back to my beginnings, that's how I felt comfortable. So like the WSOP, like even when I won my ladies event, I won my bracelet, they didn't let me play in the tournament champions like they do now. They didn't give the ladies, or the seniors, the respect of when, even though we had, big fields, and the seniors, have historic, huge fields. Can you believe they didn't? But now they do.
Yeah, that's
and
crazy.
Now I see more WSOP stops holding ladies events, but rooms have to get away from the instant satisfaction mentality, because they think, well, I'm not making as much money if I hold this tournament right now. What they don't understand is if they hold regular ladies tournaments, like I wish Tampa would, is that the ladies come in, that's a way, the stepping stone into their bigger tournaments. That's the way they get into the cash games. That's how we enter. That's how I entered. That's
the game.
A lot of my friends did the same thing. They feel comfortable starting in a ladies event. So
I have two comments. Sorry to interrupt, but I have two comments about this. First of all, Derby is having a ladies tournament every Sunday.
I love Derby. I love that they're doing this. I respect them for that.
That's great. That's great. I think it should be twice a week. But the only slap in the face, and I make comments online, and I actually made a comment to a woman that's actually a big figure here in Tampa. I said, "Why $70 buy-in? Are you like trying?
Agree.
Are you
Why
trying?
did they bring it up? I would go if it was a bigger buy-in.
Are you having a tournament? Are you having a tournament for teenagers? Like just because they're women, you're having to buy in? That's almost disrespectful.
I agree.
They want to play for an actual prize pool that's worth coming back. Make it a 200 buy-in, 180 buy-in. Why $70?
They're not trying to win $500. You know.
Thank you. I got to drive an hour over the Skyway to get to St. Pete. I'm not driving for a $70 tournament. I love that they're having them, but let's make it a reason to get more women. More women would come.
The reasoning behind. I just want to know the reasoning behind the $70 buy-in. You play 10Ks. You play 10K buy-in. So $70, it's a slap in the face. It should be 180 and higher.
I agree.
And the lady reasoning was, because we want to get more women into poker. No, this tournament is for women that are already playing poker. Let them come, entice them with a bigger prize pool. So make it 180, make it 250. Even if 30 of them show up, but it'll be like a weekly thing, and you'll have. A second thing I want to mention, what's the thing with women tournaments and you have men joining? When you have a seniors event, does anybody 49 years old join the tournament? No.
Well, if they do, they're immediately thrown out now, because we had an issue in Vegas last summer and one room didn't do it that way. Everybody else did. Now that room.
I don't understand, why is it ever a thing? When a man tries to join a tournament, immediately say, "Sir, this is a ladies event." Why is Hard Rock not running tournaments just because that one guy won the tournament? How did they even let him join? I don't care if we're in the age of non-binary and all the 105 genders available. Right. A man. If a man walks up to the counter, sorry, sir, this is a ladies event, and let ladies only play the event. Exactly. It says it in the name, ladies event. How are they letting men join? Problem solved right there.
Yes.
I never understood that concept, that they let a man join the tournament, and they're saying, I mean, what's the excuse? I don't understand. He's identifying as a woman. Like, you're a man. You can't join the tournament. I
think he's identifying as it starts with an A and ends with an E. That's what he's identifying as.
Yes, I agree. We can say it, asshole. We can say anything.
Marsha, I saw. I don't know if you had an input on it, but I go to the Cherokee Stop in North Carolina a couple times a year, and they had a females event, and it was a ring event, and then they took it off the schedule as a females event. Were you familiar with this?
I thought they had one there, and
they canceled it, and then there was some outrage. A lot of people got upset because I think, kind of like Carl said, I think the buy-in was low, and it wasn't a ring event, so it was like two things.
Because they took the ring away. People were really mad.
Yeah, and then there was enough outrage that made them like change their mind. I didn't know if you
I heard about
followed that or had opinion on it or anything.
And then they had a terrific turnout for that. They had like 250 women or something.
That's great. Awesome. Yeah, I don't know why they would think they needed to change it, especially when it's worked in the past and the game's growing. Like you said, the numbers are going up. Why are you trying to not give an extra ring away?
It is going up, and the where it used to be, how do we get more? They are coming in, so I hope these rooms are paying attention. Like Carl's saying, it's great. Let's have more ladies events. I do a 1 day ladies learn day. I did it up in Rivers Casino, and they brought me up there, and it was so fun. They started out with mimosas and continental breakfast stuff, and then I taught, and then they had a little sandwich lunch thing, and then we taught some more, and then the house put up $1,000 free roll tournament. Do you know that day we had 100 ladies participate in that, and it was free to them. They paid me to come up, but they didn't charge ladies. And to this day, I hear great things, how it's really helped their room and brought ladies in that wouldn't have come, but ladies like to do lady stuff. It's a good.
By the way, us three should have a webinar. Now that I'm thinking about it, have a webinar. We can, advertise it on Facebook, and I'm sure the turnout will be huge. And we all have something to offer here.
I would love it.
Yeah, let's
Let's
we'll
do it.
talk about it off air. But
I
let's
love
continue with the questions. We're gonna let Deborah join. She said she has some insight on the women's event. But before that, let's I saw your podcast with Donna Blevins. Shout out to
Yes.
Donna, by the way. And she
Yeah.
asked you really interesting questions
Yes.
that I'm gonna ask it again.
Okay.
How long does it take to break? And I'm going to talk about poker and life in general. How long does it take to break an old poker habit and to start implementing a new learned strategy? And that applies to poker and just any bad habit that you have.
Thank you. Thanks for that question, because this is also an old belief that just like old poker knowledge should be thrown out. And you know the term, okay, it takes 21 days to break a habit. Who hasn't heard that? Well, that's bull whatever. I got to speak nicely. But so it actually depends on the person. It can take as short as like 18 days up to like 254 days. So, or more or less. Like, just like poker, everybody is different. But, you know, you can't just say, okay, it's going to take me 3 weeks. And at the end of 3 weeks, I broke this habit. And that's what happens. Like, then you start having negative self-love. Like, say you get to 3 weeks and you still haven't broken that habit. Well, that's where you're going to downward spiral, get mental negative thoughts, which is, so you have to always be, when you're trying to break a habit, you have to give yourself self-love, be kind to yourself, because it just depends. It could be as short as 18 days, or it could take you up to a year. I mean, but
have you had any bad habits? Have you had any bad habits that you had to kick, whether it's in poker?
Of course not, Carl. I'm just kidding.
Perfect.
Yes.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Yes. May I tell you about one in particular?
Of course.
That I have the biggest sweet tooth that anybody will ever eat for candy, and especially licorice and candy. So this was ridiculous. I used to be, you know, a long time ago, I would, if I hadn't eaten some kind of a bag of candy or something, I'd have to go out of the store. If it was like 10 at night, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't have my candy today. I was addicted, and I understand sugar is an addiction, so I'm sure it was to sugar. So and I do New Year's resolutions. You guys do New Year's resolutions? I'm a big believer in writing down goals.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, great.
Every year.
So I said, I'm going to give up candy. I'm going to give up sweets and candy. You know, I gave it up for 10 years. And then I said, okay, you know, and I say, so when it got to 10 years, I said, okay, I'm going to do it for 10. So then I said, okay, that's great. I can control it now. So for the last week before the end of the year, because I knew I was going to eat it January 1st, I went out and bought everything I missed, like Good and Plenty's are my favorite, black licorice shredder. So I woke up January 1st, so excited. I didn't want breakfast. I want to go eat my candy. So I ate so much candy that I was sick for like 3 days of the new year. So then I after that, I gave it up again for 3 more years. But at least now I can control it. I don't have to give it up. But yeah, that was a really bad habit. But I had to give it up for 10 years to even begin to control it.
Marsha, name top 3 female poker players, whether local or professionals like we see on TV, that you respect their game. And like, or you tried, you know, you always have that one player that you try to play similar to their style. What's the name? Three female poker players.
Okay, the number one is very easy. Kristen Foxen. Kristen is a friend of mine. What I really love about her, she can take all your chips, but she smiles and she's a genuinely nice person. And her husband isn't hard on the eyes. Sorry, Grant, my husband's on here too. But, you know, Alex, her husband, and how cool that they have a partnership and a marriage where they can talk poker or run hands, talk strategies. I mean, to me, you know, that would be kind of like pretty amazing. And then number 2 is a friend of mine, Vanessa Selps. You all have known. She actually took a hiatus. And what was really cool is years ago, her and I played tennis. I don't know if you know, but she loves tennis in Vegas during the World Series. And I said, Vanessa, if I win, you give me a poker lesson. And if you win, I give you a tennis lesson. I used to play pro tennis, and I used to teach tennis. So she says, deal. So she went out and played. Unfortunately, I won. So she gave me some really great tips about how when you 3-bet and then the bet on the flop doesn't need to even be very big. And she gave me some bet sizing and things like that. But when she retired, the reason why she retired, and she had already told me, and it made sense, but she had said that she just didn't feel that, it wasn't making a difference in the world. Like, she wasn't doing anything that was really, in her mind, life changing or helping. So, she's a lawyer. She had a law degree. She did some pro bono stuff, and, for self-satisfaction and, to contribute to the world, which is all a great thing to do, all of us, so.
Tasha mentioned her today, but because she knew about that question. The first person she mentioned is Vanessa Selps. I told her she retired, but I didn't know why she retired. Another point, you said that she wanted to give back. Yeah, poker is a selfish discipline. Like,
that's
not giving back to society anything. It's just yourself, and that's it.
And the third person is the person that really motivated me is Annie Duke. I mean, I know people love her or hate her. Remember the Apprentice with Donald Trump, but I'll tell you what, she had passion for this game like I've never seen. I mean, the way that she was teaching, you could just tell how much she loved it. And when she explained the math and pot odds, and she said it in ways that made sense, and just she's very smart. And
what happened to her? We don't see her anymore.
I have no idea. I
was a fan of Annie Duke. I've learned a lot of stuff, like you said, pot odds. She had a video about pot odds back in the day, and
she's brilliant. Yeah,
she was a good teacher for sure.
She's just a great presenter in her passion. And that's why I always said, right when I was sitting there like a deer in the headlights, I just said in my head, I said, if I ever do well, I hope I can teach half as good as her, and I want to give back like she's doing. So she was a great motivator for me.
Let's watch this video real quick about the ladies talking about their favorite poker players.
Wonderful women in poker history. The $1,000 ladies event was the largest female tournament to ever take place. To celebrate, we asked players to give us their top 3 most iconic women throughout poker history.
Chrissy Bicknell, Vanessa Selps, and I'm going to say Kathy Liebert because she's an OG.
I love Kathy.
I knew Selps would get a lot of attention. She's awesome.
Ite.
Annie Duke, Jennifer Tilly, and the next person that comes to mind is
Tilly.
Jennifer Harmon. Wasn't Marge Simpson a really good poker player? She always put her off with the blue hair.
Yeah.
It puts them on tilt. Monica from Friends.
Just shout out June Crusader. Absolutely one of the pioneers. And then I would say Angela Jordison. I feel like you can't leave out Kathy Liebert.
See that chick right over there in this corner? Right there, that one there. Amazing. Every time I play with Kathy Liebert, I'm just like, what?
Kathy's
amazing. Vanessa, I was always insanely impressed by her cojones.
These wonderful women are making...
It's a great video.
That's great.
Yeah. What do you think about Kathy Liebert? Have you ever played with her?
I played with her. She's awesome. She's a great person. She's funny. I watched her for a final table of the seniors event. I thought for sure she was going to win. I was there cheering her on. If Gail Hand is on this right now, Gail was with me. We were just cheering her on. I really thought she was going to win that, but she's great. And she's always goes deep. She's very consistent, and that's what I like too, is consistency. You always see in her go deep in the big WSOP fields, which is really hard to do.
Let's dive in a little bit into strategy. Let's talk favorite strategies for different phases of the tournament: early, middle, late. What are you employing?
I've tried and experimented with all of them. I've tried to play a lot of hands, play a lot of pots early when you're deep. Then I've played tight. And actually, after, we're going to talk about, the things that I've done, what I've learned and the programs I'm investing in. But I think tight is right. And so I'm going in the early levels because the chips you lose are worth less than the chips you gain. So I am definitely
100%.
putting the early levels tighter.
I think it's great advice so far. I've just agreed with like everything you say. I think you're really sharp
Thank
with this.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the early tournaments are nearly worthless. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people kind of know it too. Like they know that they've doubled up early, like it's happened to them, and then they don't min cash.
Yeah.
But they feel really happy that now instead of 30K chips, they have 60K or whatever. But it still takes like 8 hours to turn it into US dollars, not just like play chips.
Exactly.
Yeah, the early pots just aren't really worth much
Right.
at all. Yeah.
Right.
What is the common leak that amateur players have, in your opinion?
I think the number one leak is overcalling on draws. I think that, you'll see like, the 4-2 rule still applies, which means like for a flush draw, like you have 9 outs, and to make your life easy, you times it by 4, on the flop. Well, that's 36%, but that's 36% only if you're guaranteed to see 2 cards. You hear people all the time. And very rarely is somebody go all in, so you're calling to see 1 card. So then you times it by 2, so you only have 18%. So the odds that's all about 5 to 1. How you almost never get 5 to 1 pot odds to call. So there, same with the straight draw.
This is something I was discussing with Shane yesterday, and he agreed with you. I disagreed with you. The pot odds on the flop, you have to take it at face value because you can never foresee the future. You can never tell if you're seeing 2 streets. So whatever the equity the computer gives you, like if you plug it in, I plugged in a hand, just a random hand, and we have a flush draw, opponent has top pair. So the equity is like 35%. 35%, you need 2 to 1 to continue. You can't say I might not see 2 cards because you can't foresee the future. So you can't cut your odds in half and say my odds now are only 17% just because I'm not seeing the river. The odds are right there. You take them in a vacuum. It's 35%, so it's 2 to 1. So a pot size bet is correct to continue because the way you're breaking it down, if it's 35% and let's say, I might not see 2 streets, so my odds are 17%, which is not correct. Your odds are 35%. So if it's 17%, you need 4 to 1 odds to continue. That way, playing that way, if you're playing a cash game, it's never profitable to continue in the hand because nobody's betting 20% pot on the turn to give you the 4 to 1 to continue. So if you want to play according to that, you're folding every flush draw on the flop. Shane took your side. He's like, Marsha makes sense, but I think you have to think in poker in a vacuum. You can't think of, because you can't foresee the future. You never can tell if you're going to see 1 or 2 streets. Does that make sense?
Right. But I'm just going by face value too. Like the fact of the math is that's what it is. It's if you're guaranteed for 2 cards, which you're not, you're never guaranteed for 2 unless somebody goes all in. But if somebody goes all in, then you have 36%. So it's just a mathematical equation. That's all it is. Like that's exactly. I'm sorry, we do disagree, but it's not 35 because you're not guaranteed to see 2 cards.
Without being guaranteed seeing 2 cards, you're
not. Yeah.
Your odds with the flush draw on the flop is 35%. It's not 17%.
With 2 cards.
Yeah.
With 2 cards.
Yeah,
Carl's argument kind of comes down to him assuming we're going to get all in, I guess. Marsha's saying
not necessarily all in.
Your odds are not. It's not. It's if you're guaranteed to see 2 cards.
This is how I see it. It's 35% on the flop, so you need 2 to 1 odds to continue. Let's say they make a bet, pot size bet. You continue. Now on the turn, your odds are cut in half, so you need 7. You have 70%. And you need 4 to 1 to continue. If they give you 4 to 1 on the turn, you continue. If they bet like pot on the turn, you're not getting the right odds, you fold. Simple. It doesn't have to be all in on the flop for you to see 2 streets. They can bet flop, you call, and then they can bet turn, and then you decide if you want to continue or not. This is like basic math.
All right, I think we should change the subject because we disagree on that.
We can change it.
I'm just going by straight math. I'm a Virgo. Everything I'm just doing the math. That's all.
Sure. She's saying
you're
can't
not
always
guaranteed 2 cards, so it can't be. It's not real 36%. It's impossible.
But based on you guys' math, So basically, you're saying that every time you have a flush on the flop, that your odds are only 17%, which is not correct because you're seeing one card. So it's 17% on the flop, 17% on the turn, which is not correct. So
if you have a table, and this is where, remember, everything is player dominant. You know, if you have people that okay, I'll be able to see another card, and they're not so aggressive, they're going to be check raising me with everything. I mean, then I'm more comfortable going beyond the 18%. But I'm not going to, I'm playing it as express odds. That's what the express odds. You're playing implied odds that, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to see the next card, which is great,
Like you can never foresee. You can never foresee that step. You're not sure.
No, if you're you can't. That's why you got.
At face value on the flop, your odds are 35% with the flush shot. They're not 17%.
How long do we have for this recording, Karen? How long is this podcast?
We're at the hour mark. Wow, and we still have a lot of questions. Okay, we can move on. But bankroll. Let's talk bankroll management, Marsha. You said you never went broke. How do you manage bankroll? And I heard you on the Donna Blevins podcast talking about money management. Let's hear it.
I have a great, rule, and I heard this from other pros, and I've heard different variations of this, and I would love you guys' opinion on this. But it's settled in my mind where this is why you can also add rebuys in. But I believe in the 40-1 bankroll. For instance, if a tournament is $1,000 to enter, first place needs to be $40,000. It needs to be approximately 40 times what your entry is for first. But as we all know, there's a lot of chopping that goes on. So your 1,000 ends up becoming like 500. So, that's why some tournaments you could buy in 10 times and it still makes bankroll sense. So I like to add in my rebuys, and look at, okay, what would be the estimated first place payout, which, and go try to find pay charts on these houses. They hide them. I don't even know why. They'll say, we use pay chart A, like Hollywood just did for the main event. But when I go try to find pay chart A, I can't find it. They don't even know where's pay chart A. Well, it's on the website, but it's not on the website. So to make a long story short, I like to just estimate based on like last year's tournament, 20%, like a lot of the payouts give 20% to first on bigger ones, or 22%. So if they're guaranteeing 100,000, then first place is 20,000 or 20 to 25,000. So I don't really want to pay $1,000 for that tournament unless I win a satellite, which is why I play a lot of satellites, because of bankroll management, the 40-1. Now there's some players, some pros, they like less than that. Or they say there's recreational players that go to the main event and they save up for 10,000. I'm not talking about that. Like some people, they don't care the bankroll management account. They saved up to play that tournament. Totally. Yeah. But if you're going to
talk, Marsha, let's talk. I see the way you're looking at it as far as what's the payouts in a tournament. But let's talk about your bankroll as far as what level of tournaments or cash you're playing and how many buy-ins you need to play comfortably. That makes more sense to the amateur player.
Right. It's 100-1 for a tournament, and 50-1, isn't it, for it's usually should be 100-1. So people that are going to play $1,000 tournament should really have 100,000 in their poker bankroll. You could see right away, to play 10,000 in the main event in Vegas. Do the math. You need $1 million to play. That tournament.
Let's
so
talk
who
about
has $1 million sitting in
more realistic. There's somebody playing locally here. They're playing let's say between 100 to 250, locally. So they need 100 buy-in basically. So $200, they need what, 20K?
Yeah. And people, I think that people, and you tell me, where does all this money come from? I watch people rebuy 3-4 times in a $300 tournament, and it's a 20 or 50,000 guarantee. I mean, they're never going to make sense if they even win the tournament because the average player cashes 12.5% of the time. So you can't.
Well, this
be
is
just-
let's talk about rebuys and what you think about rebuys. And I think rebuys has to do with if you're a winning player or not, because at the end of the day, and I want to bring up this is how my brain works. It's all over the place. Duckman contacted me and he wants to come on and talk about freeze outs and rebuy tournaments.
Oh, cool.
And there was a topic discussed about Jeremy Becker, how he fires multiple bullets, this and that, and people give him shit that he fires too many bullets. I always defend Jeremy, saying if you're winning, if at the end of the year your bottom line is in the positive, who cares if you fire 50 bullets in every tournament? If at the end of the year you're showing profit, that's the number that matters. Of course, it's going to affect your bottom line when you're rebuying in every tournament. But if you're showing profit at the end of the year, go ahead and rebuy. But if you're losing player and you're firing multiple bullets, then there's a case to be made. What are your thoughts on rebuying? And do you have a stop loss? Like you bring a certain amount of buy?
Yeah, that's a nice way to think about that. I'm actually not thinking about. I've not thought of that because I guess I've been stuck on the 40-1, including rebuys. So that's why I really love satellites, because if I'm only gonna if the bankroll or if the 40-1 only says, okay, Marsha, you should only buy in once of this, but if I can win a satellite, that means I can use the satellite ticket and buy in.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be able to essentially rebuy once, but I wanted a satellite on the first one. So,
right.
So I am always kind of looking at that 40-1.
Mm-hmm.
I try to live within that.
But
now,
in general, let's say you walk into a random event and you don't have a satellite ticket. Is there a stop loss? You bring like 2 buy-ins only or 3 buy-ins?
No, I'm restricted to, like, I'll go to Tampa, only play one if the guarantee is small and it doesn't look like it's going to be a certain amount. If it doesn't fall within the 40-1 for first place. So no, I'm probably very different than a lot of people.
When you say 40-1, are you looking at the first place?
The first place.
40x the buy-in?
Yeah, for the first place payout. So
40x.
Okay. I want the first place payout to be 40 times my buy-in.
Uh-huh.
And that's, and that's how many buy-ins I'm going to take. That's how many buy-ins. So if I could buy in 2 times and together, like say the buy is 200 and it totals 400. Mm-hmm. So then the first place is still 40 times 400, 16,000. Then I will rebuy. So I have promised myself, I promised myself a few years back, you have to live within that bankroll, and then the amount of times I've cashed, it makes sense. I don't want to just sit there firing because it's a fun tournament. Which all tournaments to me are fun because I love playing them. But I want to sit there, with no bankroll management. Okay, so that is you call it stop loss. The 40-1. I want to be somewhere within that. Have I stretched that rule? Yeah, because if I drive, a long way or go over somewhere, and then if I'm out and aces and kings and I'm out, do I really did I put all that in? So there'll be times I make exceptions.
Do the extra.
But I try to be good about that because I'm in this for the long haul. I'm not in it, I don't want to go broke. I don't want to live in my car. I mean, Grant, don't let me ever live in my car. He's a
Shane, you have anything? I rambled on here. If you have
I've never heard the 40 rule. It kind of makes sense because you're kind of just looking at like what you'd get if you were successful and the best case scenario happened and you got first. When I look at like bankroll for tournaments, it's normally going to be for me like a factor of like how much money I have. If the tournament's like a bigger one, like a 2K or a 1700, like I would want to sell action because basically, personally, it's just going to be the buy-in amount and then how much money I have. Like the prize pool actually doesn't matter too much to me.
Oh, okay.
So it's like I have like an ROI I think I have. So when I buy in for $1,000, I expect this amount of money in the long run. So maybe it's like $400 or something. The number changes per tournament. So I'm expecting to like win 400 when I play this over the long run. And then sometimes that number could be like higher. Like I think this tournament's gonna be really soft. It's like it's in Mississippi. The field's like lighter. There's some other events going on. There's like a basketball game happening the next day. So I think some people are in town and maybe my ROI goes like up a little bit. So then for me, it'd be like I want like 200 buy-ins for the tournament. But then that number can like shift like a scale because like say it's like a $1,700 main event where there's like 1,000 entries. It's
Yeah.
really hard to like kind of get my ROI out of it because there's so many people in the field. So it would take me like a lot of bullets, like 80 bullets, more 200 bullets to like really get the amount I deserve. But if it's like a Tampa, sometimes they run like a 1K in
Yeah.
Tampa, and there's only like 70 entrants. That one's actually like really great to me because I can realize my like ROI a lot quicker. The
You know,
small
Shane,
field.
Shane, that's brilliant. You're actually making me think of things that I have not thought of before because
Okay.
I stay away from those tournaments because they don't come close to the 40-1.
Yeah, you
So,
wouldn't hit your first place threshold that you kind of want, but there's a trade-off for sure in that like
Hmm.
you're gonna final table it way more because there's only 70 people. It's easier to final table, you know.
Interesting. Oh my
And
God, it's the
and if you
opposite
think
of
you're good at
how.
final tables, you might make more in that than the big
Hmm.
field one.
That's a
great.
good outlook.
Long
Thank
run.
you.
Marsha, what advice would you give to someone aspiring to become a professional poker player? Like,
Study,
let's say
study,
I'm gonna
and study.
I'm gonna make it more simple. Somebody in Tampa right now watching this podcast, and they get all gung ho about becoming a professional, quitting the job and becoming a professional poker player. What is the advice that's gonna help them get there?
Okay, I'd say two things. The first one, it's harder than you think.
Oh, yeah.
And the second one is study more than you play. Because if you run out and play, like I do this in pickleball, I did it in tennis, I did it I always practice more than I actually played. So I think poker is such an intricate, multifaceted game that I think you need to study lots more than you actually go play. And when you go play, you should be taking a lot of notes, hands, go back and check them. Like I know Carl does also. You check them in GTO, you check them in Tile Solver or whatever. Now I can call Shane and get multi-way pots. All right. So that's a good question, Carl, but definitely it's harder than you think. Don't quit your day job until you build up a bankroll through studying more than you play. And then at the end of the year, once you make more money in your part-time poker than you are in your regular, that's when you should go pro. And that's what I did. Yeah.
Super agree with the study more than you play, because it's almost like some people who maybe want to do it. They want to go pro, and then they think the route is to just fire tournaments and kind of get experience. It's, if you look at it more objectively, it's a little bit disrespectful to like your money, because it's you're not the best player you can be. You could just like study for like 2 hours, a couple days a week, and then play that tournament on Sunday with like a much better like respect for your money. That $200 you're buying in for is going to go way further, because now you're like more prepared. And if you just do it for like months and months, you'll become more and more prepared, as opposed to the route of just like firing everything and being like, we'll see what happens. I'll get better over time. You're gonna lose a lot on the route of that.
Yeah, that's great advice. I agree 1,000%. Yeah.
I'm gonna say always leave a stream of income somehow. You need money coming in from outside of poker to be able to make it in this for longevity in the game.
Yeah. Don't quit your day job. Don't quit your day job.
Don't quit the day job. Exactly. It's like you said, it's way harder than people think to make it. They will sell you the dream on TV, like the Tom Dwan and stuff. His story about depositing $500 online and never looking back. This is all bullshit. Like in real life, it's way harder than this.
Yeah.
Even with the skill of Tom Dwan, and look how much debt he's in now. But that comes back to not how good he is. It's about money management. Money management, I think, it's number one factor. Let's talk about the most memorable or significant moments in your poker career. The highlight.
You know what? I just had one last week, believe it or not. I really did. And this sounds so crazy. I've been playing, and I did something that I can't remember ever doing before. And it was in the main event satellite at the Hollywood WPT tournament last week. And I do believe in never giving up. I believe in the chip in the chair. I believe, because as you know, when you go deep with the antes and everything, a double or two. But I was in level 14 of a satellite, which you know, you hardly have any blinds anyway, and then you get
Yeah.
down to one. I was down to one big blind, and there were 3 hands before it gets to me, and that's the key. You got to pick your spots, and you are obviously supposed to go with any ace or any king or any face card with one big blind. That's what GTO will say. But
Mhm.
Marsha said, you know what? I've sat here all this time. I want to see if I can get a good hand. So I passed up like king 4 offsuit. I passed up queen something. And then I said, well, I have like one hand left before it gets, I'm all in the big blind. I got pocket queens, and I doubled up
Nice.
there. And then I doubled up, and John Gorsuch, he's a good friend of mine, with the queens. He's the one, he had ace jack, and he actually hit a jack, but my queen's out. So it was kind of fun. And I ended up winning a $3,500 seat into the main. Now I didn't cash in the main, but sometimes small victories are even more wonderful than big ones. To be able to, at level 14 of a satellite, to win a 3,500 main event for $400. I was really happy about that. I don't think I've ever done that before. So that's
Sounds like you played it perfect. I really like how you made the folds, and yeah, sometimes the hands just aren't good enough too. Like you have to get through 8 people, and you have one big blind. Like
yeah,
they might just call off like 9-10 suited against your king 4, and it's still just like a 50-50. Or
Yeah.
you could wait for a better spot. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was one of them. And of course, winning the ladies event will always be pretty amazing. Again, I thought I won it twice, because knocking the guy out and then winning it. It was so unexpected because, yes, I'd been playing and studying. It was like 2 years, just doing it for like 2 years. But, I ran so well in the final table. I got, some exceptional luck at the final table, which we all know we need. But, that obviously was an incredible highlight. And then I won a circuit ring also in a seniors event, which is pretty cool, at West Palm Beach, and just had a wonderful time. Y'all aren't old enough, but when you get to play in the seniors, it's so much fun. It's everybody's so nice, and everybody's having a good time. We talk about our joint replacements. We talk about Medicare. I mean, the things that are the conversations that go on in the seniors event. We laugh, and it's just a whole nother world. So winning a ring in that seniors event was pretty special too.
This is your picture with Caldo.
Yeah, I love him. Oh,
That's a nice picture.
yeah, he had aces. I'm short stack. I shove an ace on the cutoff, and he's on the button, and he has aces. And then the big blind had an ace too. So that term's called card bunching, where everybody is folded around me. And so everybody thinks, they'll have nothing. Well, just, card bunching, they use it in blackjack too. So everybody's folding all the low cards. So all the big cards are still in the deck. And people, like, that happens a lot. Like when you get to small blind, big blind, a lot of times you see kings versus aces, and people are like, how does that happen? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, it's card bunching. It's not that unusual, because that's why everybody's folded, because they had crap, right? So it gets back there. But I thought that was funny. And I love Caldo. I've loved him for years. He's great. What a great
Caldo's
guy.
great.
I'm going to try to get him on the podcast. I'm sure he'll have a good story.
Oh, he's awesome. He's great.
Okay, we have a couple more questions, and then we're going to dive into the chat questions, and I'm going to get Deborah on.
Okay.
What are the common mistakes and misconceptions that you see among newer players?
I think playing like hands like ace rags. I think they see aces, and they see an ace, and it's like mesmerizing, like, wow, this is a great hand. But I see that a lot, like a lot of ace rags played, offsuits. That's one. And again, staying in, like whoever called you with 8-9 on that, but like sometimes they'll stay in and it doesn't make sense, like on a hand, like, and then a lot of people like they just like to play, so they play more hands than they should. So I think those might be some common mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's the opposite too. Like they're they haven't played a tournament in a while, and they're super tight too. Like they're like afraid to play a hand or something. So it goes both ways. They're either way too loose or like way too tight. I think.
Yeah. Hi, Debbie.
Deborah Farmer, how you doing?
Yeah.
Good. How are y'all? Nice job. Nice job. So I just wanted to make a couple of comments. Of course, Marcia knows I love her. She was my coach for 2 years, and I bubbled. I was the money bubble on the World Series that she won. That ladies.
Oh no!
Oh my God! Stone bubble. Oh.
Stone bubble, ace jack, because I was so stupid, I didn't even know what I was doing. So I shoved with an ace jack, ran into an ace king, and she's looking at me going like, what the hell are you doing? I was like, I don't know. I want to comment about the women, because this was a conversation that Carl and I had, and that's why I said you got to get Marcia. She's like the best, certainly the best in Tampa Bay, one of the top in the country in here. The lack of attention to women, to female tournaments, I think is abysmal. And the Derby tournament that you're talking about, I want to say one thing in defense of that. That's put on by PLON, which is the Poker League of Nations, which is an all women's association. It's like the largest women's poker association in the country. And they do that. Courtney Barr has taken that on, and Courtney subsidizes this thing herself a lot of times. And that's the only reason that I go is to support her, because believe me, I would not be playing a $70 tournament, though that's probably more my skill level. But the reason that it's a $70 tournament, and I will tell you from having played it, it's only once a month. Derby has it once a month. The women that play that event are not poker players. You will not see them in the Hard Rock. You will not see them at Derby. They're not your standard me, Marcia, Terry Crawford, Chrissy Holleyback, Mindy, Andrew Zachow. Well, Andrew will come and play because it's Derby. But that's not who these women are. These women are this tournament is designed to bring them in and give them an opportunity to experience what live action poker is all about, and how you sit down and how you play a live game, and they learn a lot. And I sit there, and I mean, sometimes I'll go, well, do I want to be like coaching these people? No, but yeah, me coaching. So, but it's an opportunity for them for cheap to learn something and to hone some basic skills that hopefully they will. And I always encourage them. I say, you need to come to oh no, I never go to the Hard Rock. I'm too scared to go to the Hard Rock. I was like, no, you're not. So you're
defending the $70 buy-in and saying it's great to bring new people to the game, and that these people aren't really the same clientele as who would show up at like a $250 women's event. Like if Derby were to change. Okay.
Exactly. So why not give them the opportunity? And I mean, they're not there playing for the money. I'm telling you, none of us are. I'm certainly not. I tell Courtney all the time. I call her and go, hey, can I just like Venmo you my $70 because I got something else to do today? But so I think that there is a place for that. The second thing, I am so freaking pissed off at Hard Rock and this whole. I mean, how the hell can you have a breast cancer series on the Pinktober thing and not have a women's event? I boycotted that whole event. I'm telling you, and I know a bunch of women that did too. I think that's a disgrace. I think the optics on it are misogynistic, and I fought with I fought with everybody over there, and they just like, whatever. So, boo, 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 Hard Rock for that.
I see your point. I don't know if it's misogyny. I think more of that guy that won the women's tournament in Hollywood. He messed it up for everybody.
No, he didn't. What the hell is that? That was one guy being an asshole. You know what? And you know what they did to fix that in Vegas at the ladies event? They popped that buy-in to $10,000. for men. They can't do that here in Florida because it's illegal.
Deborah, we talked about this, me and Marsha, before. To solve the problem is very easy. You have a penis, you can enter the tournament. It's so simple. Very simple. How are they letting a man buy into a ladies' tournament?
Because I don't think you can discriminate on the basis of gender in the state of Florida. I don't know. That's a question. Attorney. Why can you discriminate on basis of age? If it's a seniors event, you're 49 years old, you can't enter. So it's ageist but not sexist? I don't think you can. I think if you're 40 years old and you walk up to that cage at Hard Rock and buy into a senior, they are not going to not let you play. They can't.
Really?
No, they legally cannot. That's discrimination. Nevada does not have that because they have different gaming laws than Florida has. But here's the point. We digress. Who gives a shit if it's a male, if he's whatever he's got hanging, that he comes and plays a ladies' event? I don't care. Is that a reason to totally disenfranchise all of the women in Tampa Bay because one guy is an asshole? No, it's not. I'm sorry. I'm not buying that. I don't agree with it. I think it's wrong. I don't care. Let every man that wants to come and play, if he's got that kind of guts and he wants to sit at a table and be, I mean, I saw in Vegas, man, before they instituted the 10K, I sat there. They had 9 men play in the ladies event in the World Series. And one woman came over to my table and cold cocked the guy that was sitting next to me, who was actually a pretty nice guy. And he was only there because he'd lost a bet. And we were sitting behind Sean Deeb, who was dressed like Dorothy from The Wizard. I mean, who cares? Are you going to not have an event because of that? No, that's wrong. That's my rant.
I didn't think it's right. I'm just giving the reasoning. I don't think it's correct. I think they should definitely have a women's event. Another thing, why do you think, Deborah, more women don't play poker? What's the reason behind it? I asked Marsha that question earlier.
And that's been the $1 million question for us forever. I think it's interesting to me now when I walk into, how many years, Marsha, have we walked into a poker room and you've been the only female in the whole tournament sometimes. And then it was you'd be the only female at the table. Now you can come in and there's Barbara Carden sitting next to me. There's Terry. There's all these other women, and we do have more women that play. So I think women have gotten stronger. I think they've gotten more fearless. Doyle Brunson said, remember that class I taught at USF, Carl, that you helped me out with? Carl came and did the math part. And Doyle, and in that I said, Doyle Brunson said, he said a lot of things. He said, it takes courage to walk into a poker room and sit at a poker table. And I wanted to add to that. And I told Doyle Brunson this at the Bellagio one night. I said, that's very true, but let me tell you something. It takes more than courage to be a woman and to walk into a poker room with a sea of men that are all gunning for you. For whatever reason, you got a target on your back and you're going in there and take all these guys on. Testosterone, you got to have buckets of it to do it. Yeah, I know. And you're the one I learned from.
Deborah, what you're saying, sorry, Shane, what you're saying stands true. It is intimidating to walk into a room. 99% are men. You're going to be the center of the attention. Yes, you're going to be checked out, looked at. That's intimidating. But what do you think is the number one or the multiple factors? Is it testosterone? Is it not risk taking? Like women don't like to take risks? Is it?
You don't want to set yourself up for abuse. So you have to be stupid to set yourself up for abuse. But what women, I think, are starting to learn is that they can dish it out. We can dish it out as well as the guys. And I think once you've developed that kind of fearlessness, then it becomes, and the longer you play and the more you play, the level of confidence. I have people tell me all the time. I had a guy tell me a couple of weeks ago at playing, he says, I have never played a woman like you before. He said, you walk in here like you fucking own this place. I said, I do fucking own this place. and you're good about.
Deborah, you're tough for sure, but give me one incident where you walked into a room and you're talking about abuse, and you were abused by a man at the table, and he said something. Name one incident.
It was at 10 o'clock at night in the Hard Rock, and that guy Gary was the floor guy, and this
shout out to Gary.
Guy from Philadelphia. He was a dealer, and then he's not even there now, I don't think. This guy from Philadelphia, Philly guys are the worst. Philly and New Jersey guys, and some New Yorkers. He was drinking like crazy, so I was going after him, and it was cash. I was taking his stuff. He came across the table at me. First, he called me a cunt. Then he said, "What the hell are you doing? You shouldn't be here. Women don't." And he went off on me. So I said, "Call the floor guy over." And that guy, Gary, he did not back me up. He didn't do anything. He just stood there and said, "Oh, well, deal with it. Deal with it." That's the floor management at Hard Rock. To me as a woman, you deal with it. This guy is
Gary
to assault you at the table.
Gary normally is the voice of reason. I'm surprised he dealt with it like that.
It was unbelievable. But that was it. That's one incident in what? I've been playing since 2006. And, the first time I walked in and played at the Hard Rock, I sat down at a table. I thought it was a tournament table because that's all I had ever played. And it was a cash table. That's how stupid I was. I did not even know the difference between tournaments and cash. And it was a 1-2 table. And I kept saying, well, when are the blinds going up? It's like, no, they can go up. This is cash table. So, but you learn, and the more you get confidence. I mean, you get coaches like Marcia that teach you something so that you have something to fall back on. Education in poker is the key. Read everything, do everything, take the classes, get the coaching. Because when I walk into I'll walk into any poker room right now in the country, and I'm perfectly at home. But it's confident. That's what, and people tell me that all the time. You have so much confidence. You just have you project so much confidence. Well,
you're tough, Deborah. You two have the same attribute. You're both tough. Marcia, we got to move on to the questions from the chat, and then we have a hand to break down from Kristen Foxen. Terry Ann Crawford, shout out to Terry Ann on Facebook, says, glad to see you getting a female player on the cast. She just had that comment. Lana Nestor, I would love to hear Lana's perspective on all this. I think she would have a couple things to say. She says, yay, I was getting tired of all the dick swinging. Love Marshy. Sorry about this R-rated comment, but Lana, you had to go there.
I love Lana. I love her. She's great.
Lana's stuff too. Heather Hoffman on Facebook says, looking forward to this one. Deborah Farmer. Who is Deborah Farmer? Deborah Farmer on Facebook says, I'll try to be there live. She is live right now. Ralph Brandt on Twitter says, who is Ralph? Do you know him, Marcia?
Oh, I love Ralph. He was the poker director at the Isle.
He says, how is your pickleball game? By the way, I want to come out and play pickleball one time with you.
Come on, I'd love to. I love pickleball. It's the best game ever. It's so much fun.
Yeah, he said, how's the pickleball game going?
It's going great. It's awesome. I love it. Everybody should try pickleball if they haven't tried it yet. It's great. It's a great combination. Like poker, you sit and you use your brain for exercise, and pickleball, you use your body and your brain. There's strategy in pickleball, but at least you can exercise. And I play during the WSOP. I play pickleball in the morning and then go sit for 12 hours and play poker. Oh.
Come On Son on Twitter says, much respect for pumping out content. Thank you. I don't know who Come On Son is. Marcia, let's talk a little bit about mental game. That's the one thing we haven't talked about, and dealing with adversity. First of all, have you dealt with any adversity in your poker career? What was like the worst year? And let's talk about that for a little bit.
Oh, yes. Well, adversity. I actually wrote a book, believe it or not, in 2013. It's called Life Obstacle Course, a User's Guide on Handling Adversity. Because, I'd had some adversity growing up, and, I won't even go there. It's for another podcast, but I did not have an easy childhood. Let's just put it that way. And, things have happened. But, as far as adversity in poker, I did have a extremely difficult relationship and then a divorce right during my World Series win, which is kind of interesting. In fact, the morning when I wore sunglasses that morning with us 14 left, not just because I think it looks cool to have sunglasses at the table, but I had tears. I was crying most of that day, just from my personal relationship struggle with my husband at the time. So I have a wonderful husband now, by the way. Hi, Grant. I know he's on here. He's wonderful.
Shout out to Grant.
So I think it's interesting that, and that's why I made the decision. I had to leave that. It was a very toxic in a lot of ways and negative in a lot of ways. And so getting myself out of that. And that's what's interesting. Like, then I didn't play for a while. And, life is about balance. Carl, you mentioned balance. And, you do need a balance. You need, your personal relationship, you need exercise, you need hobbies. And, I just don't believe in playing poker 24/7, without having other hobbies and a balance. I have two wonderful grandchildren now. I have two children. So my life kind of evolved into a lot of things. So I absolutely love poker, but I do not play it every day. I wouldn't want to play it every day, believe it or not. I love pickleball. I love all these other things. But I really love the World Series and leading up to things like that, because then I know, oh my gosh, I'm going to play poker. I get to play poker every day, but I'm still going to play pickleball in the morning. But it almost, when I give time in between things, it makes me, I feel play better because, oh my gosh, I get this time and that's what I get to concentrate on. And so, I just believe in balance. But as far as negative, yeah, I had that negative relationship. And then I just had something that might seem negative, actually was a positive. I had January 10th, I had a hip replacement, followed up February 1st by a shoulder surgery. Both I chose to have at the same time because I wanted to recover at once. So there was no poker for me for months because I was recovering. But in that time, all I did was study. I bought everybody's programs. I bought GTO, I bought Wizard, and I learned how to, and quite frankly, I think I grew as a player more this year than I have in my whole career, just because of my surgeries, and I was housebound. So I'm like, okay, let's turn this into an opportunity to learn and grow, and so and it helps my students too. The more I learn, the more it helps my students. So
how about adversity in poker, Marsha? Downswing. Did you have that 1 year where you couldn't gain any momentum?
Well, yeah, especially when I had personal issues going on, like I either wasn't able to play as much as I wanted to, or I chose not to play because I know that if you play when you're not all 100% mentally into the game, like you talk about mental coaching or mental strength, there are times that you just shouldn't play if you're not all mentally there and, you know, everything's firing all together on a positive way. So my life isn't all, roses and cherries. I've had times where I've had to step away from poker, take a break because I have things in life happening or physical. I've had so many body part replacements. Like, I think when I'm cremated, they're going to have, those metal companies that buy stuff. They're all going to be there bidding on my remains because I have so many replacements, so I've had, through the years, oh my gosh, I can't even list all the body part replacements and surgeries. So, but yeah, life is pretty cool because what's great, poker's there, but you always have to keep on the treadmill, and you always have to, if you want to be good and successful, you have to keep working harder and harder and harder, But I don't want to discourage anybody because it's a fabulous game. It's so fun. And, you meet so many cool people like you guys right there. And it's just awesome. And it's a great mind exercise. It's terrific. And it's always changing, and you will never learn it completely ever because it's always changing. And that's what I also love about it too.
Marsha, we're gonna watch this hand with Kristen Foxen and break it down. GTO and let me set it up first. This is final table. They're down to 6 players. Kristen is in the small blind. Aram Zobian is in the big blind. Blinds are 20K, 40K, 40K. Foxen has about 48 big blinds, and Zobian has 87 big blinds, so they're both deep. Foxen opens from the small blind to 140K, so 3.5 bigs with pocket kings. Zobian flats. The pot is 320K. Flop is 8, 9, 10, 2 diamonds. Foxen checks. Zobian bets, very small. She calls. That's exactly why I had this hand on, because the fact that she checks that board, and that shows you what a great player she is. Because, and I'll show you what the solver is also agreeing with her. But let's watch the hand.
Okay.
Interesting table dynamic for Foxen being out of position directly against our chip leader. Oh, wow. And we got a clash on our hands here. Pocket jacks versus kings. Oh, wow. Zobian playing the coy. Is this a thing you would often do, Donnie? Call here with jacks, or is this like a small percentage type play?
I wouldn't say it's small percentage, and I wouldn't do it all the time.
Oh, wow.
Okay, on this flop, Marsha, what is your thought process, and why would you go for lean for either a bet or a check? Like, put yourself in her shoes right now. Pocket kings, 6 left. You have 48 big blinds. What's the thought process here? Let's get inside the mind of Marsha.
Hey, Carl. I can't really see it, but I see one black king. And are there on the flop? Are there any suits that are matching suits? Or
Oh, because you're on the phone, you can't see the screen that well, right?
no?
Okay, she has king of spade, king of diamond, and Zobian has 2 black jacks.
Okay, and the flop, is there any spade or diamond
The
on the
flop is 8, 9, 10, 2 diamonds.
Oh, 2 diamonds. So she's got a backdoor flush. You know, I'm
Yes.
already thinking backdoor, because, the average winning hand in poker is 2 pair or better, and they're playing for probably shit tons of money. There was an old Marsha, and there's the new Marsha. There's 2 different Marshas now.
Okay,
And,
let's hear both their perspective.
Okay, the old Marsha would certainly bet that board, which is a mistake now, but the old Marsha would be like, well, geez, I don't want them to get there in a, I don't want them to get there with a straight, and I've got an overpair, which in the old days, an overpair was like the Holy Grail. And, the threat of a set is always there, but that board is so connected, flush draw, straight draw. But the old Marsha would have bet that, and that's a mistake. Now, she's the one who's out of position.
She's out of position. She opened from the small blind, and Zobian is in position. You said betting that is a mistake. The solver.
No, I would have. My old Marsha would have bet that. The old Marsha
betting
would have
betting
bet
here. In the solver world, there's no such thing as 100%. There's always like a sliver of one thing or another. So all options are on the table. Betting is correct. We can bet small. We can check. We can even bet big. Like, all options are fine. Normally, the solver leans more towards taking a passive line on really connected boards, that whenever one card changes the equity drastically, so let's say a jack or a 7 falls here, so your hand goes from like premium hand to like you go on the defense here. It's not like a value hand anymore. So anytime the board is very sketchy like that, the solver leans more towards taking passive lines and betting very small if they want to bet, or actually going for a check like she did. This is what the solver is doing here with pocket kings on that board. Small blind on that board. This is kings. Kings is checking 37% of the time and betting 60% of the time, or 62, 63%. The best option is bet 1.6 big blinds. So bet like tiny, or check with the kings.
Interesting.
Yeah, all the red is bet, and all the greens with all the combos of kings, even the kings with the king of diamond like she has. This is kings with the king of diamond. It's checking. Actually, it's betting a little bit more. It's checking 31% and betting 69%. And also, yeah, going for the 1.6 big blind bet. And the pot is almost 5 big blinds, I believe. Let's see.
I think one of the more interesting parts of this hand is going to be this pre-flop action. When you're at the final table, you're like your whole strategy gets leveraged around the stacks. And Kerry Katz here has he has 12 big blinds. So there's one absolute short player, and then there's the cutoff Moreno who has 20 big. So there's two people like less than half your chips. One has like a fourth of your chips when you're Kristen. Yeah. And then the person in the big blind is Zobian, and he's just a huge chip leader. So you're just always going to be at a disadvantage playing a hand against Zobian because he's going to be a big bully against you and leverage this Katz player and this Moreno player against you. So I think coming at it like just straight from the pre-flop stuff, Kristen's strategy should be like before she even looks at her cards, her mind should be like, I don't want to play a big pot.
Yes.
So her whole strategy should reflect that to where even a hand like Kings, it might just limp. I would assume her strategy here pre-flop is going to be like just limping and then just like a little bit of raising. Like even Kings maybe not raising, aces limping, because what Zobian's supposed to do is attack the shit out of her, and she's supposed to have like backup. You know, she's supposed to have some good hands here. So I think right off the bat, if Zobian's paying attention to this and he's kind of like caught up, he should realize that when she's raising, she's got a really good hand, or she's like off balance. And I think that's why he's calling jacks pre-flop. So she opens and he has jacks, one of the best hands in the game, blind versus blind, and he's just calling. So I think he's pretty sharp here and realizing that like she shouldn't raise that much.
Right.
So
these
I think
are
he's
all
next level on her a little bit.
All valid points. Very well said. All these dynamics are playing coming into play in both of their minds. Anyway, let's keep watching the hand.
Foxen's range here is probably pretty polarized, raising out.
Oh, that was my question. Sorry, Marsha. What's your strategy, small blind versus big blind in general? And I'll tell you what mine is.
You're gonna love this because I just experimented with Doug Polk's strategy after investing in his programs and some things, and he likes to flat from the small blind, polarize and everything. He flats almost 100% in a lot of times. So I thought, well, if Doug Polk can do that, let me try it. And I learned something. I learned that I'm not Doug Polk. So I flatted. I used that strategy at the December Win series. It did not work for me. And I think because I'm, Doug Polk, everybody fears him, but they don't fear me like they fear Doug Polk. So when I flatten the small blind, they automatically assume I don't have a hand, and even flatting 100%. So for me, I'm changing that. I'm now going to do probably a polarized range of raising, where I'm going to keep the merged range where the playable hands, I'll probably flat those, and I'll do a polarized raising.
Explain to the audience what's a polarized range. What does that look like?
A polarized range is when you're going to raise with premium hands like aces, kings, queens. And I got to say, he said about the reason why he didn't raise with the jacks because of the effective stacks around the table. So the polarized is you're going to have premium hands, and then you're going to have, excuse my French, shit hands. You're going to have bluffing hands. Like when I say bluffing, you want to have maybe some blockers, but like ace 4 offsuit or king 7 offsuit, cards that would not play well post flop, that would be on the bottom of your raising range. So that's how I'm playing now. So much better. I did really well, and I played the one tournament, cash in that, and that's exactly how I played, and I'm going to play like that. But Doug Polk, God bless him. Good that he can flat all those. How do you play him?
I'm going to tell you how I play it, and let's see how Shane plays it. I use a mixed strategy in the small blind. So I do a polarized open, and I mix in some flats. Great. So it depends on who's in the big blind, and the more capable that player is, the more I lean towards limping and lean towards raising, because I don't want an amateur in the big blind to spaz and think I'm going after their big blind. And I just don't want to play a 70-80 big blind pot, small blind versus big blind. Because
Exactly.
sometimes they spaz and they don't give you respect for your raise, and
Mhm.
they start battling with shit hands. So it depends
Yep.
on how I perceive the player in the big blind. I play accordingly. So it's either polarized open range, so premium hands and trash. I'm raising with these hands, or I'm flatting everything, and it all depending on who's in the big blind. So
Okay.
if I think they're capable, I do some more raising because I know they're not gonna spaz. Like if Shane is in the big blind, I might open a little bit more, some a polarized range. And if I think an amateur is in the big blind, I'm doing more flatting and playing post flop because I know my edges realize post flop, and I can still. I'm gonna outplay them post flop 9 times out of 10. You can bet like one single big blind on some boards. You can't really rep too many boards like the Broadway boards. You can't start betting a single big and stealing it just because you didn't raise pre. Yeah, I adjust in real time, but I have those two strategies. Shane, what you got?
Fabulous.
Yeah, it's always going to depend on everything. So like here, she's probably supposed to limp kings, I would say. So like final table, blind versus blind is going to be a lot different. And I just did some coaching with a guy where he literally was just interested in blind versus blind. So I gave him a lot of info, but I don't want to go like super into detail just on a podcast about it. But I do think there's like all these exploits you can find in the blind versus blind dynamic where like even if a chart says to have this polar range, there's going to be plenty of people you're playing against who the polar range isn't good against. Marsha thinks some people think she's limping weak hands too much. So like she should be like trying to find a way to like counter that right away. She whatever her intuition is, like she said, it's probably right. She's limping and getting raised too much. So she like thinks they're attacking her. She should limp extra good hands, or even take some of those polar hands away, or just add more bluffs. So you could also just limp those hands you're talking about, like the king 6 off or something, some of your polar hands, and just limp 3-bet them because they're attacking too much. If they're attacking too much, they're gonna have too many folds.
That's a very good point. That's like playing
3-betting scary. It looks strong. People will just fold to you. And
so Shane was saying to adjust in real time, and I think that's the best strategy. It's like playing rock paper scissors. If you think they're doing something to counter, like Shane says, if you think they're raising too much, start limping strong hands. So if you get the aces and kings, like trap them basically, jacks, queens, just limp, and you think they're opening too wide, you trap them, and they'll make a huge mistake for too many big blinds. Anyway, let's continue watching the hand, and we'll wrap it up with a couple fun questions, like 2 or 3 questions, and we'll wrap it up. But let's finish the hand.
You're not screen sharing any. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
A little slower. Obviously, keep those trash hands in. We know she has a good hand, of course, but it doesn't need to go too crazy.
There's virtually no reason for him to check back here if he does. He's chip leader. His hand's great.
He doesn't want to lose a big.
Good. I'm glad he bets.
He c-bets very small.
Yeah, this is good.
Interesting flop here. Foxen has
He
the
c-bets
diamond along with it.
2
Still,
bigs.
this looks pretty dangerous, right?
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity to 3-bet or check raise. Sorry, 3-bet. Check raise here. Check calling. I don't know. It might be hard. Playing a good player. You're deep. You're out of position. Draw heavy board. Saying that, of course, she just called.
Marsha, what's your
Totally wrong.
play here
That's how it works.
when he c-bets on that board?
Well, because of the final table dynamics, and you're up against a chip leader, your risk premium is going to be gigantic. So I like her call there.
Nice. I like the fact that you mentioned risk premium.
Mm-hmm.
Foxen having the king of diamonds in her hand obviously helps, especially with
Ace of diamond on the turn.
Wow.
So now the front
Even
door
though
flush
this is
gets
an
there.
overcard to Foxen's hand, do you think she feels more comfortable with it, knowing that Zobian didn't 3-bet before the flop, therefore making an ace in his hand less likely?
I mean, Zobian could certainly have aces. I mean, he did call pre. I don't think he's going to go crazy with a hand like an ace 10, ace 8, ace 9. Ace 10, I think, is more likely to bet the flop than an ace 8 or ace 9.
Foxen checks turn, and he checks back.
Check turn's great.
Check, river card,
Yeah.
6 of clubs. Definitely.
River comes 6 of clubs. So now the
Definitely a
flush is
smaller pot than I anticipated when we saw those cards.
the flush is on board, and it's
Yes,
four
winner
liner to a
of this
straight. Any
board, I
7
think,
makes a straight.
has kept this one on the smaller side.
She checks River one more time. I love her line, by the way. And
Oh,
he checks
wow.
back.
That was great. They're both so smart. They're both so great.
Of course.
They're just waiting for the short one to bust, and they don't want to get involved with each other. That's fabulous.
Yeah, they played it exactly like the solver would play it. It's sick. That's why they're making the big money.
Yeah.
On the turn, with the ace of diamonds falls, this is what small blind is checking pocket kings at 99.9%. So
Wow.
she did exactly what the solver's saying. And the big blind with jacks, well, the big blind doesn't have jacks in the solver because jacks are never flatting pre-flop. So it's not even here in the mix.
You could give him a hand like 10 jack suited. That might be similar. It's a hand that has top pair and has a lot of equity too. But
You know
even still,
what?
it doesn't like betting 10 jack suited. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the solver doesn't even have any no jacks, no queens, no kings or aces because all these hands are raising free. But anyway, the river comes as 6 and small blind is also checking kings on that board. It's so she played it perfect. 97% of the time it's checking, and big blind of course doesn't have jacks in the solver. So yeah, kudos to her for playing it like a boss.
That's why she's one of my favorite all time.
That's why she's the best in the world.
She's amazing.
Okay, I have 3 more fun questions and we're gonna wrap it up. We lost Shane.
Uh-oh.
What's the strangest item you've seen someone use as a card protector?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah.
Okay. I
He's
had
back.
this. Where was the tournament? It was in Vegas. It was one of the summer Vegas tournaments. And there was this really outgoing guy. That's the best way to describe him. And he was famous. And I don't remember what he was famous for, but he had like a model, like a car, like a fire engine as a chip protector. And he said, every time I get knocked out, I give somebody like a model car. And so I knocked him out. So I got this like a fire engine red like car. And I'm embarrassed. I didn't know, like everybody else knew who he was. He's some famous guy, but yeah. So I just thought that was kind of interesting that his chip protector is you get it when you knock him out, you know.
That's interesting. What's the most ridiculous hand you've ever seen played out? Whether you were in it or you just watched it played out. You
We
recall?
see it. It was probably at the Hard Rock. I'm just kidding. You know, we see some pretty wild hands there. I don't recall off the top of my head, but we've seen just some. I just think people when they call when they have no chance. Like I see when people shove and you know they're bluffing, but when people call those hands, I've seen that, and I just scratched my head and I'm like, they're calling with nothing. So I could see shoving with nothing, but calling with nothing is amazing.
Yeah, that's the Robbie Lou syndrome.
Yeah.
It's like you have nothing,
Still
so I'm gonna
scratch
call
my
you with
head on
nothing.
that one.
That was.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. She said, "Well, I thought you just had ace high." I'm thinking if she thought he had ace high, she
can't
has
even-
jack high.
You
know.
can even beat ace high. If you could design this one is gonna make you think a little bit. If you can design a poker themed cocktail, what would it be called and what would be in it? So you're making a cocktail.
I would make it pickleball poker cocktail because I love the combination of both of those things. And I would make with like little ice balls that have holes in them. Like my husband has these ice balls that he freezes in rubber. I would make them with like holes that look like pickleballs, like in there.
Yeah, interesting. What would go in it? What
Like-
alcohol?
Vodka for sure, and probably orange juice and cranberry juice. That's if I have a drink, I don't drink hardly at all, but if I do, that's what. Remember old school? You guys aren't old enough, but when I was a teenager, it was called a Madras. Orange juice, vodka, and cranberry juice.
Sounds good.
It is yummy.
Vodka's my liquor of choice too. Yeah, I would drink it.
Yay.
We need to go out one time talking about drinks. Have a drink and talk about poker here in Tampa. Anytime you guys like, I'm down.
That sounds great.
Guys, thank you so much. Marsha, thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom.
Great to
Shane,
talk to you, Marsha.
So
much
fun.
for
Nice to talk with you, Shane. Yeah, and thank you, Carl. This was great. I mean, this was fun. It's like we're sitting in my living room and we're chatting and having a good time.
just having a chat. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys.
Okay.
Cool. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
all. Bye.
Bye, Marsha. Bye. See you at the
Thank
tables.
you.